So I recently finished watching the first season of Goblin Slayer, and it is quite literally one of, if not the worst anime I have ever watched. There are so many aspects of this series that are just fundamentally broken beyond repair. Welcome back to Psych 1. In this edition of Weeb Week Review, I'm going to prove to you that Goblin Slayer is one of the most disgusting piece of garbage in Weeb entertainment this year. As always, here is the table of contents. Before I begin, I just want to give a bit of disclaimer. This review is purely on the anime adaptation of Goblin Slayer. I'm well aware of the light novel and manga, but I'm only judging Goblin Slayer as an anime. Alright, let's begin. I actually liked the first episode. There are a bunch of setup for characters and pacing, as well as a nice introduction to the anime's style. However, don't let the first episode alone derail you from thinking that the whole series is good, because it's not. It's far from anything considered to be good. You see, the directors are well aware that they need to capture your attention, so that you'll tune into the next episode, and I have to admit, they did it quite well. At first, I thought it was going to be a shonen type anime where the main character works her way up the guild rankings. However, the show begs to differ. We get to see the short-lived journey of a group of young adventurers clearing a cave of goblins. Interestingly enough, we don't get any names, and the whole trip introduces goblins as a fearsome enemy. We see one of the members of the group get stabbed to death while another dies from poison. This part actually made me feel somewhat uncomfortable, since the voice acting really felt lifelike, the way they screamed while getting killed. This is actually good, because it created an impression on me. And oh boy, next comes the scene we've all been waiting for. In case you're wondering why you decided to begin watching Goblin Slayer, it's not because you want to see the daring adventure of some heroes to rescue the world. It's not because you want to see badass scenes of action. No. Let me tell you why you really decided to watch Goblin Slayer. At some point, you've heard about this scene, right here. You wanted to see this scene for yourself. I mean, that's completely understandable. It's not every day that a non-hentai anime would show a rape scene. You watched this first episode because it wowed you. You want to see more of this. This type of bizarre imagery. Well, imagery, if you know what I'm talking about. I believe it's this scene in particular is what sparked the interest of many viewers. This is why Goblin Slayer is one of the top-rated animes on Crunchyroll. Anyways, we also get to see the star of the series, Goblin Slayer, of course. Again, this first introduction is well executed. We don't know anything about this mysterious knight that clearly has experience killing goblins. But this kind of suspense only works in the first episode because it draws us in. We want to see more of this character. We want to know more about him, what his goals are, his personality, motives, and connections. We also get to see him do some questionable actions, which is, again, quite emotionally extreme. I definitely had conflicting thoughts about Goblin Slayer's character, which is again good because it subverts our expectations that maybe he's not the goody two-shoes heroic knight in shining armor. After the priestess girl gets saved, the first episode ends with them turning in their quest. A reasonable conclusion. Now you may be thinking, why aren't I hating on the series yet? Don't worry, there will be plenty of time to talk about that. All of Goblin Slayer's cast is the most boring set of characters I've ever seen in any anime. Other than Goblin Slayer and the priestess, 3 other characters also join their party. The dwarf, the elf, and the Argonian. But here's the thing. The series doesn't try anything to make any of these characters at least remotely memorable. They just feel like mindless killing machines, or they just have different abilities to fight off enemies. The only characters I can somewhat connect to are Goblin Slayer because, well, he's the main protagonist, and the 2 girls because tits. Or lack of tits, in this case. While I'm on the topic of tits, I might as well say that my waifu from this series is the priestess girl. I mean, it's either her or the elf, but I choose her because she has something there, unlike the elf who is flat. And flat is bad.
What are you talking about? Flat chests are the best.
Oh yeah? Do you know who else has flat chests? Dudes. Anyways, the fact that I'm choosing my favorite girl from only their biological factors only goes to show how shallow these characters are. Some of their developments don't even make sense. The elf says she's over 2,000 years old. Well, if that's true, shouldn't she have the best combat abilities amongst all the fighters in the group? The Argonian and the Dwarf do have some kind of goal, but their goals don't bring any depth to their characters. It feels more of an excuse for the writers to put them in the group. Now, I actually rooted for the Priestess girl the most, because when the series began, she was the weakest character. I tend to sympathize with the weakest characters in most action/shonen animes, because I see the most amount of potential for them to grow, to become powerful. Much like how I liked Leorio the best in the beginning of Hunter x Hunter. However, his experience in business and trades makes up for his lack of combat capabilities. In Goblin Slayer, on the other hand, I saw absolutely no progression in the priestess's character. In episode 8, we see her get harassed by a shopkeeper. Now, wouldn't it have been so much better if she fended off the harassment by herself? You know, to show development of her character, to show that she's becoming stronger. All she needed to do was to be more assertive. But nope, as always, Goblin Slayer steps in and saves the day. She couldn't even do that by herself. In episode 7, the gang faces imminent defeat, and what does the priestess girl do? Nothing. It's so unsatisfying to see no apparent change in her character. She hasn't changed at all. In episode 9, when the gang brings down the mirror, she just stands there doing nothing. It's like the rest of the team doesn't even acknowledge her presence. It's almost as if Goblin Slayer is the one to carry the group on and on every single time. The shallow character writing diminishes a lot of the emotional aspect of the anime. I don't care what happens to any of these characters. The way that they don't have any resonance with the audience only makes the series less intriguing to watch. I want to care about all of these characters, but the series simply don't put in the effort to do that. Like during the part where they first fight through the sewers. They go through numerous combat exchanges only for the dwarf to unleash a powerful blow to all the goblins on the ship, wiping them all out. Why not do that in the first place? You could have saved a lot of the team's stamina, resources, and one of the priestess's blessings. How come no one even acknowledges this? In addition, having the dwarf shine his powers here would emphasize his character even more. It would be his way of saying, hey, I'm an important asset to the group. You couldn't have won this battle without me. See, why can't there be times when certain characters other than Goblin Slayer pull a miracle? It would make me respect their presence in the team, knowing that they all have something valuable to contribute. Speaking of Goblin Slayer, I can't even begin to tell you how disappointed I am at his character development. Simply put, there is no development to his character. All we know is that goblins murdered his village, and his goal is to wipe them all out. That's it. His goal doesn't change in the series in any way. He cares very little about anything else other than killing tiny green things. This is again very lazy character writing. His lack of identity works in the first episode because it draws us into his mysterious characterization. But now that we've seen all there is to see about him, it's almost like his armor serves no more than an empty shell to cover up his hollow personality. The story of Goblin Slayer is easy to sum up. There is no story. One major flaw with this series is they don't have a concrete goal to work towards. Let's look back at Hunter x Hunter. Gon's goal is already established in the first episode, and the series sticks true to that goal until the very end in episode 148. The Goblin Slayer team just seems to wander place to place killing goblins. But what's the purpose behind it? Why are they killing every goblin they come across? What's to be gained? Goblin Slayer's personal goal of eliminating the species? That's way too far-fetched. It's not like any dungeons they clear have a significant impact on the whole goblin population. And here's the other thing. What would happen if they do manage to kill every single goblin? Would that be it? The end? Doesn't seem much of a worthy conclusion to me. The only times I get remotely interested in the story is when they fight, and the scenes aren't even that well done. Although I gotta admit, some of these shots are pretty cool. At one point, I actually saw a huge missed opportunity to improve the story. At the end of episode 7, Goblin Slayer lies emotionless after a fight. Now, I actually thought it would be better if he died here for good, because that would subvert everyone's expectations. After all, Goblin Slayer is a title, not a name. Anyone can be Goblin Slayer. Wouldn't it be so interesting to see the priestess girl become Goblin Slayer? or literally anyone else, maybe multiple people can become Goblin Slayer. I feel like this was a huge missed chance to twist up the story, but of course the anime doesn't do that. I also have a major problem of how much filler this anime has. They're already running short on runtime compared to the novel and manga, so why are they putting in fillers? Like, why does it matter if we know that the elf likes cheese? Does her liking cheese have any importance to the story? Now, granted, I'm fine with it if they want to have some downtime to develop characters. But instead of eating cheese, why couldn't they talk about their pasts? Wouldn't that be much better to make us sympathize with each character? The elf must have some kind of story to tell since, she's lived for 2,000 years. And what's with the flashbacks? Do we really need to know more about Goblin Slayer? It doesn't establish anything than what we already know about his current goals. Apparently Crunchyroll calls her Cowgirl, so I guess that's what I'll be calling her from now on. Anyways, why does she get so much backstory? She's not part of the gang, so why should we care about her? And what's the deal with the Sword Maiden? We know she's supposed to be some kind of hero, but how does her presence let us know anything about, anything? She and Goblin Slayer have some kind of argument in episode 9, but why is this meeting relevant? Goblin Slayer doesn't change his opinions about the world in any way. He just walks away cluelessly to find more goblins to kill. The Sword Maiden seems to praise him for some reason. Why? Does she not know just how flat his character is? It's like she's praising him for being clueless. The reason I managed to sit through this is because my eyes were focused here the whole time. And let's be honest, you probably were as well. I mean, this meeting already takes up a good chunk of runtime, so how come nothing meaningful comes out of it? The short rendezvous tells us nothing. Why are they spending so much time on flashbacks and drinking on episode 10? It's already nearing the end of the season, shouldn't you step up the story? But wait, we don't need a story if we can see a cute girl being drunk, right? Look, we can all fantasize about a flat elf girl all we want, but that doesn't excuse the fact that she has shitty character writing. But wait, we don't need a story if we can just see the team beat up goblins like badasses. Since when is it okay to just have action sequences? Since when is it okay to put less of an effort to make a story when you can just have fight scenes? Are we to the point where people can get satisfied without a story and just watch people mindlessly beat each other up? Do we no longer need a story in order for an anime to be considered good? Can you imagine a timeless classic like Naruto be the same series as it is now if all the story and character development were taken out, leaving only the action sequences? No, of course not. But wait, the story could have been better if they incorporated more H scenes like the novel and manga. If you think this way, you're saying the only way for the anime to improve is if they put more of this. I'm just saying this. There are so many other aspects the series can improve on, like character writing, story progression, world building. The list goes on and on. If this is the whole reason you bother to stick around, just go watch hentai. There's this really good site called hentaihaven.com. You just plug it into your web browser and off you go. Wait, never mind. Many people don't know this, but Goblin Slayer as an anime has been manipulating you the whole time. How does it do this? Well, just consider the quality structure of the series. The first episode starts off strong, with emotional scenes and mysterious character introductions. But after that, it's just the same shit over and over. Filler after filler, until a semi-watchable battle happens between the team and some goblins. You probably noticed that none of the later episodes ever live up to the quality of the first one. Oftentimes, when an episode ends, you want to see more, but not because you care about what happens in the story, because you're disappointed. Have you ever finished watching a Goblin Slayer episode and think to yourself, huh? That's it? Where's the good part? This should not happen in any entertainment series. If I were to put this into a graph, it would look something like this. See, the first episode has already established what kind of expectations you should have for the anime. You keep expecting the later episodes to peak the quality of the first one, but it never does. Let's compare this with the newest season of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. An anime that's actually good, but somehow has less ratings than Goblin Slayer. As you can see, the quality of Jojo never really decreases. It maintains a steady quality because it matches with your expectations. This is how a story should be written. The story should get progressively better, and you want to see more of it because the quality lives up to your expectations. This is good story writing. Let's compare episode 9 of each respective series. In episode 9 of Goblin Slayer, the team defeats a portal, and there was that meet between the Sword Maiden and Goblin Slayer. This already takes up the majority of the episode's runtime, and we don't get any character or story development. Now, in episode 9 of Golden Wind, while there isn't any stand versus stand action, we do get to see so much progression in its story. Bucciarati gets promoted, 2 new characters vital to the main plot are introduced. It physically feels that Giovanni is getting closer to his goal. The major advancement in story still lives up to the audience's expectations. It's quite impossible to walk away from a Jojo episode without feeling satisfied, even if it ends on a cliffhanger. This is because, like what I said earlier, Jojo is consistent with its quality. Now, Goblin Slayer, on the other hand, manipulates you in such a way that you'll always tune into a new episode, hoping that it will be just as good as the first one. I mean, why bother writing a complete good story when you can draw people in with only putting in the effort to writing the first episode? Here's the thing, Goblin Slayer knows they've impressed you with the first episode. They know that they've been feeding you bullshit for the last 4 months, and they know that you'll keep watching that bullshit because you want to see more of the first episode's quality. And you never will. I can guarantee you, when Season 2 of Goblin Slayer eventually rolls around, it's gonna once again draw you in with all this impressive build-up in the first episode. Then take a nosedive in quality, just like how it did this season. Because they know how to get you to watch the series without putting in much of an effort. Now tell me something. Is this scheme any different than major entertainment corporations, like BuzzFeed? They draw you in with a flashy video idea, just to have you mindlessly watch through garbage enough to keep your attention to maximize watch time. You know what else this diagram reminds me of? Gambling. When you gamble, you'll be first rewarded with a decent payout. Then you'll keep gambling, hoping to get the same results, but you won't. That's how you become bankrupt. Now granted, you don't go bankrupt when you watch Goblin Slayer, but in terms of idea, it's the same thing. And hey, maybe those dice in the opening doesn't symbolize the random will of God or whatever. Maybe, just maybe, they're implying that you're gambling to see whether the episode you're watching will be good or not. And just like gambling, you always lose. Alright, I'm going over the ending. If for some reason you don't want to spoil, use the timestamp. So this part of the script was added after the final episode was released, since I wanted to see how this mess of a series was going to end. Well, it wasn't surprising. It's pretty disappointing. Goblin Slayer notices a large amount of goblin tracks in episode 11 and warns the cowgirl and the townspeople. I'll be honest, I actually like this conversation between the two. They really emphasize a sense of intimacy, like they genuinely care about one another. If only this was in the earlier episodes. The gathering of people to help with the fight was absolutely hilarious. The fact that people are only motivated by money just speaks so true about modern society. It's so ironic. I love it. And do you want to know the best part? They even kept up the emotional music after everyone got motivated by greed.
ギルドからも依頼があります。ゴブリン1匹につき金貨1枚の懸賞金を出します。チャンスですよ。マジかよ。ゴブリン1匹で金貨1枚。
Hey look, the 2 filler characters from episode 5 joins the fight because Goblin Slayer helped them. I guess the filler episode will now serve a purpose, right? The battle itself was meh, okay. However, do we really care about what happens to anyone other than the main cast? The filler characters don't do anything, the Sword Maiden doesn't help in any way, and the cowgirl doesn't do jack shit. The fight between Goblin Slayer and the champion goblin was pretty good actually. However, just as Goblin Slayer faces defeat, the moment that I've been waiting for during the whole series has finally arrived.
し深き地母神よか弱き我らをどうか大地のお力でお守りください。ザ・ワールド
Oh my god! When I saw the priestess, I was like, yes, she's not useless. Oh wait, as it turns out, Goblin Slayer was the one to instruct her to do that. Come on guys, you had one job. And can we please state the inconsistency of the priestess's girl's character development? If I recall, the last time she was in a dire situation, she literally pissed herself. So what happened? How did she become so brave? Did seeing Goblin Slayer's thick abs really open her eyes? See, there's no sense of natural growth in her character. That's why this scene is just so terrible. I was anticipating the aftermath of the battle as well. Finally, we get to see what was the point of all of this. What do our heroes achieve after killing countless goblins? Well, naturally they celebrate. Okay, what else? Goblin Slayer explains how he took a chance when offering the rewards for killing goblins.
Do you hear that, guys? Gambling works.
Also, the fact that the priestess says that if you ask for us, we will come help you doesn't sit right to me. Are you saying that if Goblin Slayer doesn't ask for help, then no one will show up? It's not something a friend would do. A friend will come to your aid, regardless if you ask for it or not. Anyone that only helps other when requested have the traits of a mercenary, not a friend. Which really begs the question here. Are these people really Goblin Slayer's friends, or are they his henchmen? Let's also talk about the cowgirl. Her presence in the show is completely irrelevant. Let's assume that she gets killed in the battle. How would that affect Goblin Slayer? I mean, hardly anyone else knows her, so her death wouldn't mean much to others. Well, we know that Goblin Slayer's only trait is liking to kill goblins. If she dies, how would that change his goal in any way? It doesn't. Well, he would probably want to kill goblins even more, but other than that, what else? See, this is the result of shallow character writing. And if that is not all, the anime decided to shit on the audience one last time before they wrapped up the season. The face reveal of Goblin Slayer. Here is the thing. The hidden face of this character is one of the major trump cards that the show has on the audience. They know that you will want to see what he looks like. So naturally, they're gonna hype it up as much as possible. In case you're still curious, I can tell you what he looks like. Goblin Slayer has an ordinary face, just like everyone else. Look at other people's reactions. They don't seem too surprised about his appearance, so nothing much would stand out. Here is the other thing. What does it matter if you know what he looks like? What can his face look like that can possibly amaze you? Is knowing his face going to help you understand him better as a character? No, of course not. And finally, there we have it. Well, at least the series is over. Finally, I can relax. If this anime wasn't popular at all, yet it still has a shitty story, I would have just brushed this one under the rug. But the fact that so many people buy into this bullshit just really pisses me off. One of the reasons I made this video is to make people more aware of this. Why are people liking this? Are you just blind that Goblin Slayer's storytelling is garbage? And that you're being manipulated? There's absolutely no reason this anime can be even remotely interesting. Why are people so unaware that whoever is behind this purposely didn't put effort into writing a whole story, and only left you with the bread of the first episode, while leaving the crumbs of the later ones? Anime is supposed to be an escape from the bullshit garbage that corporate think tanks feed you. It shouldn't pander to it. Liking Goblin Slayer is essentially the same as saying, I like being manipulated. I like mediocre content. I am simple-minded. If people continue to support this, it will only get worse from here. Just look at modern AAA title video games. Microtransactions were a thing in earlier games, and now it's spreading like a goddamn tumor. Because companies saw the success of previous practices, and now they decided to follow it. What's going to stop other anime corporations from looking at the success of Goblin Slayer and doing literally the exact same thing? Do you really want to see a good first episode then being fed garbage just like this piece of shit? If you think that you've actually thoroughly enjoyed watching the first season of Goblin Slayer, let me just say this to you. Congratulations. You've just experienced what it's like to consume mainstream entertainment. Guys, it's not too late. All you need to do is call out Goblin Slayer's bullshit. Stop giving this the attention it clearly does not deserve. If we stop this now, there is still a chance to stop this tumor from growing. Now, I did say in my anime rating video that I'll probably never give an anime less than a 5 out of 10, but for Goblin Slayer, I'll make an exception. Oh, and when Season 2 of Goblin Slayer comes out, don't give the corporate assholes behind the writing the satisfaction of giving your watch revenue, and just skip the whole thing. If you really want to experience Goblin Slayer as it was intended to be viewed, just go read the light novel and manga.